What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 9th episode of the Switch It Up podcast. We got a good one here for you today. We'll be talking about a documentary I saw really recently that I just got, way too invested in. We'll be talking about the upcoming fight with Conor McGregor and what's going on in the UFC. We'll also be talking about our top 3 favorite artists and what we like and dislike in the music industry. And then we'll be taking some questions and answering some questions that we got, which we thought were pretty funny. So let's get into it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today is this absolutely crazy documentary I watched on Netflix. So it's called Behind the Curve, and essentially it's the story of the flat Earth community. Now, going into it, I had watched a lot of YouTube or episodes of podcasts or a bunch of other stuff relating to it. And I always just thought to myself, oh, these people are morons and idiots who don't know anything. And I still think that, don't get me wrong. But it's amazing following this community and finding out that a lot of these people are very wealthy, which I would not have first assumed, and that they have a community of millions of people that buy into this insane theory that the Earth is flat for just the most insane reasons. Like, you have celebrities who believe it. You have people who have a lot of money, high status individuals who are attending these massive flat Earth meetings in these hotels, in these gathering situations, all because this one dude set out these YouTube videos a few years ago. Essentially, the documentary follows this guy named Mark Sargent, who released a 5 YouTube video series called The Flat Earth Clues. And it basically got a bunch of these people who are, I guess, kind of misinformed or uneducated on science to believe what he was telling them, which was that the planes on Google Maps only went certain directions. And so that there's no way the Earth could be round because they wouldn't be flying in these directions, which...
Called a flight path.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
So it's just absolutely nuts. And what they do is that a lot of them... or a lot of the people that they follow that they consider like the flat Earth leaders that have like podcasts or whatever, they're so invested in flat Earth that any change to that opinion is like the Antichrist, right? It's like, it's confirmation bias. It's like, if you believe something, you're only going to look at stuff that confirms your opinion.
Right. Wasn't like Kyrie Irving one of those guys as well? That
Right.
was like, yeah.
Yeah, and
I remember reading all that.
Not just Kyrie Irving, but like Shaquille O'Neal, Kyrie Irving, and like many other like mega celebrities have come out and been like, it's a possibility, like, which is bananas that it has like evolved from this small YouTube subset of like a 4chan like poll to a YouTube video to now like people believing that, science isn't real and all this crap, which is just crazy. But anyway, so essentially they follow this guy to the biggest flat Earth conference of in the world, and they watch him give a speech, and they break down this guy who runs a podcast called Globe Busters, it's called. Okay. And essentially he breaks down how the Earth is flat and all the new flat Earth news. And he's a scientist, right? He's a scientist. I'll use quotes on that one, but he basically got the biggest flat Earth donors to give him a bunch of money to run experiments to prove the Earth was flat, right? So this documentary follows his experience or his experiments, and it's incredible because you watch a flat Earth guy who believes in science disprove his own logic, and it is like the most amazing thing ever to see. The first experiment they run a series of 3, and forgive me for being very excited about this because it's just so much fun to get into a rabbit hole about this. But the first experiment they run is this incredible one where they get a laser and they shine the laser through 3 different points. They're all 8 feet. And the idea is that if the Earth was flat, then you'd be able to shine a laser through any point and be able to see it on the other side, right? Because the curvature of the Earth wouldn't raise or lower the laser over a span. So they try and do that. And it essentially turns out that they can't see the laser. And so over that point, and then the scientist is like, well, if there's a curvature of the Earth, if Larry holds up his hands and he shines the flashlight 6 feet above his head, we'll be able to see it. So he goes, Larry, get on the ladder. And Larry goes up the ladder, shines the light, and goes, well, we can see the laser now. I don't really know. I feel like there's got to be a really good explanation to this. And then so he's like
So he
so
just like debunked his whole theory in order to
exactly in
oh
just
my
on one
god.
experiment, but he's so convinced that he's right that he's like, oh, we're gonna get one of our big donors to buy us a laserscopic gyroscope, which will be able to prove once and for all that the earth is flat by identifying that what it does is it tracks the earth's rotation, and
Yeah.
people claim that the earth is a globe. The earth should be traveling 15 degrees per hour. And so they buy this $25,000 laser gyroscope to track the Earth's movement. And if it doesn't move, obviously the Earth's flat. So they test this gyroscope, and obviously it comes back 15 degrees. And he has to go give a speech at this conference because they spent so much money on this gyroscope to prove the Earth is flat. So he has to go give this speech at this conference, and he is screwed because it came back as 15 degrees. So his excuse to this when he gave his speech was that, oh well, the heavens emit a laser radiation that counteracts the radiation and the lasers from the gyroscope, which is why it's coming back 15 degrees,
Right.
not because of the globe. And
Yeah.
all these
The
people are like,
heavens.
oh yeah, the
Yeah.
heavens, exactly.
The
Yeah, all these
heavens.
people are like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then the best one by a country mile is the one at the very end of the show. Is they have one where they shine a light and they put it through a hole in a wall. And it's similar to the one they did with the laser, but it will prove once and for all the curve because they do it so close. They're watching the light emit through the hole,
Hmm.
and they shine this light, and once again it disproves everything they've been saying, and you just hear the guy at the end go, oh fuck, which is the greatest thing I've ever heard
Oh my god,
because
man.
it's
That's
literally it's impossible to disprove.
yeah. So I haven't seen this documentary yet. But it's something that I'm actually really looking forward to now.
It's
Now, like
incredible.
I mean I have seen a lot of stories on it. The video that you're talking about on YouTube, I've seen it as well. It's actually hilarious. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But this is something different. So honestly, I have it pulled up on my screen right now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so it's something that I just added to my list on Netflix. So it's for sure
Yeah.
a watch that is something I will be watching either later today or tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes.
It's yeah, for those of you who don't find or just need something to watch, I can't stress enough. I was looking for things, and it's more so interesting to see how they think. And I'm kind of very interested in how crazy people rationalize their decisions. And I think a lot of it's misinformation, but I also think a lot of it is the fact that a lot of the main flat earth people have kind of found a home, and like an area where they feel like they can, give their opinions and not be judged.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them feel like now that they've found that, even if it was being disproved, they want to keep this community alive. And so
Hmm.
they're kind of like, no matter how crazy the idea is, they
Yeah.
want to all, be in the community, and they're never going to not disbelieve it.
Yeah, they just want to be kind of part of everything. But like speaking of documentaries in general, like Netflix has done such a great job releasing documentaries on just, random things.
Oh, it's
I don't know
insane.
if we talked about Seaspiracy, or
No.
if you've seen it yet, but that's another great watch as well. I'm not gonna say anything about it. Just watch it. Trust me. Take my word for it. It's just about yeah, I'm not gonna talk about it because I want it all a surprise for everyone that's watching it because it really opened my eyes about how seafood is made or where it comes from, what the whole process behind it is, and it's very shocking to say the least. But definitely give that a watch as well. Um, and then if you guys have any other recommendations off of Netflix as well, let us know about it, and then we'll give it a watch and we'll review it on next week's show or
Absolutely.
something else afterwards. Yeah.
I got one more too. There's a documentary. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. If you haven't, I definitely recommend you give it a watch. It's one of the most insane things I've ever seen. It's called Icarus. Basically, it covers this guy who starts out. It won the Oscar for best documentary. I'll say that first, but it covers this guy who goes on essentially a mission to be the best bike racer he can possibly be. But what he's doing is he's telling the bike race, this massive bike race in Europe. He's saying, I am going to dope. I am going to take drugs. I am going to dope. See if you can catch me. And so what he does is he hires the number one scientist of doping at Russia's National Doping Agency, and he
Hmm.
says, "Help me dope in this race to figure out how I can do it and
Yeah.
beat the system."
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is it goes from a documentary where he is trying to beat this bike race and dope for it to see how he does, and
Mhm.
turns into a relationship with this Russian doping guy
Yeah.
who ends up exposing how Russia doped in the Olympics. And it was the entire reason that that whole scandal happened was because this documentary filmmaker had this relationship with this guy, bought him a plane ticket to America when he thought his life was in danger, and ended up exposing the entire Russian doping scandal, which was absolutely an incredible watch just to see how it
Hmm.
all unfolded. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was the UFC and like where it stands, but more specifically than that, I think Conor McGregor, we have a bit of a disagreement on that mega fight coming up on July 10th, which is going to be crazy. But I think like recently with the UFC, I found a lot more of my friends, or at least a lot more of like my close friends and family, are like really getting into the fights. And I got to give credit to Dana White. I got to give credit to the UFC, but I also got to give credit to like the TikTok and YouTube boxing people, because I think like that's brought in so many fans to just combat sports that like wouldn't have arguably have been there, and it's gotten like so much more hype towards the UFC fights, towards boxing fights, and it's brought in a lot of fans, and I think it's been incredible. But the question I pose from this is, I think if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, you believe Conor McGregor's kind of done now. He's washed.
No, so I don't think McGregor's washed as a fighter. He's still one of the best fighters that we've ever seen in our time, at least, or at least from the entertainment aspect of it.
For sure.
His last loss against Poirier was definitely devastating for him, and his previous loss before that to Khabib was one that really matured him as a fighter in the UFC. So I like if he does, I personally do have Poirier winning this next fight against McGregor on July 10th in a couple of weeks. Um, but I do also see that if McGregor does lose, he does retire from the UFC.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that just because, well, I think there's a couple things we can take away from this. One is
Mhm.
McGregor's clearly not fighting for the money anymore like he once was. The guy sold
Yeah.
the whiskey business for like $600 million
Hmm.
dollars or
Yeah.
whatever.
I know it's like 660 million. Yeah.
Yeah, something ridiculous. So he's obviously doing it for the love of the sport, and I
Yeah.
think for the love of the fans. And
Hmm.
while I think that's probably affected him a little bit, because when you're fighting to like save your family or like to like gain monetary income, you probably have a little bit more of that like extra push. But I
Yep.
think that on top of that too, like McGregor's never lost two fights in a row in his life, not even just in the UFC, but in his life. When he lost to Nate Diaz, he came back, he beat Nate Diaz in what was like one of the biggest
That's
fights ever.
it was, I mean, it was close. It went to
Yeah,
decision.
but he won. So he came back and he won that one when he
Allegedly.
yeah, well he won and he came back and got the dub there. And to be fair, he's never been kind of he's never been able to, or he's always been able to learn from his experiences. And so he took what he learned in the first fight with Nate Diaz. And
Hmm.
the problem with that one was the choke and getting on the ground. And Connor's never been good on the ground. So he trained and was able to stand up with Nate and he ended up winning. And the big thing with the last Poirier fight was the leg kicks. And he wasn't able to block them. And Poirier just ate his shins alive and then was able to knock him out by virtue of that because McGregor couldn't move anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's what he's got to be able to do is block them.
I do agree with you where he's not coming in it for the money for sure, because he's made so much
Yeah.
in the last few years. But I will say like if he does lose, like I said earlier, he will retire. I just don't see anyone else or Dana White giving him any other opponent to fight afterwards because he's fought everyone in his division really,
Yeah.
and he's beat most of the guys. He's lost to Poirier and Khabib. His last two guys that he's lost to, and then Diaz obviously as well. But even if he does, let's say he does come out and win, I still say he retires because I just like he's done everything he has to do in the UFC. I just don't see another fight afterwards.
Well, the thing is with that is I think if he wins, especially over a guy like Poirier, who is, I
Mhm.
mean, arguably basically the champion now that Khabib's gone. I mean,
Yeah.
there's really nobody else who's kind of on his level, but I think there's a lot of areas he could take it. So I think he could be stupid and he could go up a division and face a guy like Usman or a guy like who goes.
He's gonna get murdered.
I think
There's
so
no
too.
way.
Oh, I think
Like
so too. But I'm saying it's like he would have, if he was able to beat a guy like Poirier, I think he'll then go get the championship just to say he did it again when everybody thought he was done.
I just don't think he's getting older. He's made all the money he needs to make, and he's held the belt before. Like
Well,
I
that's what
just
I mean
don't.
is I think for him, I think the beauty of it is no longer the money. The beauty of it is like doing things that maybe people think he can't do, or doing.
Well, he's done it before, right? That's what I'm
I
trying to say.
know, but that's what I'm saying is like he wouldn't
Yeah,
be fighting if he didn't love it still, and he didn't
yeah,
want to capture the gold still. I think he's
yeah,
got no real reason to keep fighting apart from the fact that he wants to A, prove people wrong, B, he loves it, and C,
yeah,
he's just like he just loves the entertaining fans aspect of
yeah.
fighting.
Fair enough. Like I just honestly, I just don't see, like if he does win, honestly, like for the best thing for him would be just to walk away from the sport and call it a career. Because like if he loses after that, then it's just it's just looking even worse for him afterwards.
Oh, for sure. I think every fighter reaches a pinnacle of when they start losing fights and they're not
Hmm.
who they once were. I do think he's still young enough. And I think that even if he doesn't chase the gold, another fight that would be very appealing to him is the trilogy with Nate Diaz that we never got. And Diaz isn't really attempting titles either. Like he's kind of towards the end of his career after he got murdered by Edwards.
Yeah, if you saw like the fight last week, like I mean, ETS literally could have had the biggest comeback,
I know.
and and while he lost the first 4 rounds to Edwards, but like he just lets up and he starts pointing at the guy and doesn't do anything. Like,
It's
what's that all about?
crazy. I don't get it, man. It's like it's almost as if he didn't know he was wobbled, but like he clearly pointed to him. He knew like he just didn't go for the finish, which I didn't understand. It made no sense. I think, but that's what I mean is like in terms of this is like Diaz is clearly not going for the title. And
Mhm.
Connor, if he wins, I feel like he could go for the title if he wanted.
Yeah.
But I think if he wants to continue to entertain fans, then he's just
Mhm.
why not put on the trilogy with Nate, a fight you can probably win because Nate doesn't look like as good as he once was, and he's been off for a while. So I think that's one that you probably like your chances, and you also think it's a great one for the fans that we never got to see. So I think
It'd be
that
great to see. I just don't see it happening. Like,
yeah,
there's no chance Connor puts himself in that position, or even Dana White lets it happen.
I mean, Dana would have no problem because it would sell 3 million pay-per-views. But I think with Connor, it's all about Connor because Nate will take the paycheck no problem. So it would
Mhm.
be if Connor wanted to do it. I think,
Yeah, makes
which would
sense.
be which would be like a big thing because I think it's for him. It's either he's chasing gold again,
Yeah,
he wants to entertain, which the entertainment fight aspect would probably be Diaz. If he
yeah,
wants to chase gold, but like so be it. But then you're also putting your legacy on the line, which it doesn't make sense, as you said. Like
right.
you're better to just
Just
retire at
walk.
that point.
Yeah, like if you win the fight, end on a good note. Walk
Yeah,
away as a winner.
yeah, I agree. I think it makes sense for him to do it. I don't know. I just think he's one of these guys similar to like a Michael Jordan where like you're not going to want to retire on top. You're going to want to like do it until you like physically can't do it anymore. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of fighters struggle with that.
See, like the biggest name that I can think of, or the two names that come to mind when you say that is Cowboy Donald
Yeah,
Cerrone,
for sure.
right? Look at the end of his career, and
Yep.
then if you look at Anderson Silva,
Yeah, 100%.
like the way he ended his career, right? Like it's shitty to end on a career like that,
Losing
on that
skid.
kind of on a losing skid. Like
Yeah,
I would hate to be in that position personally,
agreed.
but if you're a person chasing the money, then 100% go for it because you're
Well,
making the money.
that's just it too. It's like
But
Connor's not those guys because
yeah,
he got $600 million. Like those
mm,
guys don't. Anderson probably has enough to live forever,
yeah,
but Cowboys doing it, to get as much as
yeah,
possible. But
yeah,
friggin' heck, man, it's going to be an interesting thing to see, and I'm interested to see how it goes, especially with, I think combat sports is one of the biggest up and coming, or not up and
yeah,
coming, but like the biggest growing sports
hmm,
in kind of our generation. Like
yeah.
with how you see the YouTubers and the TikTokers boxing,
That
and
was a shit show last weekend, man. Like
yeah,
we talked about the Floyd and um the Jake Paul or Logan Paul fight
Logan Paul, yeah,
the other week, and like the TikTok versus YouTubers is, I guess it's all for entertaining purposes. So
yeah,
I get that, but like it's I don't know. It's like a dent for the sport. I like
bro. It is the first time in my life that I felt legitimately old because I didn't know who half these people were. I have
yeah.
no. I got friends who are younger than me from school texting me like, "Are you watching this?" I'm like, "What are you talking about right now? Like, why would I watch TikTokers fight YouTubers when I could watch the UFC?" I'm like,
Yeah, like the
genuinely thought
UFC's
I
out.
felt
Yeah,
old.
like I would much rather, which I literally did yesterday. I was watching the prelims instead of watching that because it's more entertaining to watch the prelims in the UFC versus a
Literally,
boxing match. That's for entertainment. Like,
could
no, I'm not
not agree
gonna.
more.
And like, and it's pay per view too. Like, people are paying $50 for it. Like, come on.
Crazy.
Come on.
Yeah, and it's like you're watching guys who dance on camera, put on boxing
Yeah.
gloves to chase money. Like that's all you're
Yeah.
doing. They're trying to
Or,
get as much money from you as
yeah.
possible.
Like I'll give credit to Jake Paul, because
100%. I
he's the one
agree.
that's fought like he's called out guys, fought like UFC like Askren, I guess, whatever, but he fought him right now.
Yep.
His coming up fight against Tyron Woodley. That's something that I'll definitely be watching as well to see if
Yeah.
Jake can do it or not. Because if he knocks out Woodley or just beats him, then yeah, he's legit.
Legit.
Like
100%. Yeah, Woodley's a
so
killer.
like KSI was the one who started all this,
Yep. Credit to him.
as like the fighting. But he deserves all that credit for sure.
Yep.
But if it goes in the direction where YouTubers or TikTokers are calling out like legitimate fighters and not just fighting themselves, then yeah, I'll support it 100%.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. I couldn't agree more. I think for me personally, like I enjoy watching Logan and Jake, maybe because I know who they are. And so I'm not like a fan of either of them, but I like the aspect of them fighting like a Floyd because it creates this dynamic of like if it were to be a Logan
Yeah,
victory, you'd be
yeah,
like, oh my God, I blew the sports world apart. This is the biggest thing that's ever happened. Whereas if I'm watching a guy like Bryce Hall fight another guy who I've never heard of before, I don't care about the outcome. Like I have zero
yeah.
interest in the fight. But now I'm sure they have a lot of fans that do have a lot of interest in them fighting because it's
Well, yeah,
entertaining.
they all have like 5-6 million plus fans,
Right.
and they're all like 12-year-olds. That is what I said earlier. Like
Yeah.
that's all you're pleasing. But if that's what you're into, then go for it, I
Chase
guess.
the
But
bag. Like
yeah.
what they're doing is they're doing the exact same thing Jake's doing on a kind of a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
They're allowing themselves to get a lot of money off of doing something where they're probably not going to get injured. Like they're
Yeah,
going to take a couple punches to the face. They're going to walk away with like $5 million, and then they're
yeah,
going to go on to the next thing. And I think Jake's kind of opened that up to people where it's become mainstream now. And credit to them for chasing the bag because I'm sure that
yeah.
how we find the Jake and Logan thing interesting, I'm sure they find that interesting because they're fans of those guys.
Yeah,
So
it's their era, I guess,
yeah,
right? So makes
exactly.
sense. Makes
Which
sense.
I don't understand. It makes me feel old, but I guess so be it.
We are old.
Yeah,
We're 24. Like, holy
crazy.
shit! Come on.
I'm 23. I won't be 24
In a
in a
month.
bit. In a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, not yet though. I'm going to Neverland. Peter
It's literally
Pan.
less than a month.
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about
Yeah,
that.
you're old. You're old as shit.
The next thing I wanted to talk about here was we haven't really talked a lot about music on this podcast, and I think we should change that. So we wanted to see what our top 3 favorite artists are and a song from each of them. And I personally think this is going to change a lot between me and you because we listen to different stuff. I'm sure we have a little bit of the same music taste, but I think this.
Yeah, I've seen your playlist before. There's a reason why I drive on road trips and I control the aux on the road trips.
All right, what do you got? Who's your favorite artist and your favorite song? Ranking in order.
I have my top 3, and I'll start from 3 and I'll work my way up.
Perfect.
Number 3 has to be the Sixth God, Drake. Okay,
Sure.
he's definitely like he's a good mix of rap, R&B, all that kind of stuff. And I've been listening to him for like over 10 years now.
Yeah.
So he has to be in my top 3. And in terms of speaking of like favorite songs, before I get to my favorite song, like I know Drake has had a lot of like people that have written songs for him over the years.
Sure.
But like the beats that he's used and all that, that's what I look into music, not just who it is, but if the beat's good, if the lyrics are good. So coming back to my favorite song, it has to be Marvin's Room. Like,
oh my God. Yeah. Talk about
it's
hitting
just,
in the feels, buddy.
every time I'm driving, like I drove home at like 4 a.m. last night
Yeah.
from my buddy's house and just like cranking Marvin's Room for some
That's
reason.
a heartbeat song, though.
Oh.
That's a breakup song, a Leafs loss,
Yeah,
any
everything.
whole time you're having.
Yeah. That's my go-to. If you know. Hey, Ozzy, if you're listening, that's our song. That's our song.
What do you got for number 2?
Well, let's hear number 3, and then we'll work.
Okay,
we're working
so-
right back. Yeah.
So I had a really tough time at number 3 because a lot of like my number 2 and number 1 are
Yeah.
very alternative.
If it's country, I'm deleting this right now.
It's not country.
Okay.
It was
You saved the podcast.
So yeah, my 2 and 1 is like very alternative music that probably not a lot of people would have heard of. But for number 3, I had kind of a few different people. So Drake would have been there, Migos would have been there, Travis would have been there, but I had J. Cole at 3.
Okay.
most importantly because we've seen him live front row,
Oh,
and
that was
also
just
I'm obsessed with the new album currently. Like it's absolutely
okay. So I'm gonna
incredible.
cut you off there and
Sure,
gonna do a quick story time.
go for it.
Okay, so Jake and I bought front row, or I think we bought like row 5 seats
We
to
did,
J.
yeah,
Cole's concert. And this is when he was doing his For Your Eyes Only tour. And it
yeah,
was the first day of his tour. And we go into the arena. He had 2 stages set up. So the middle stage was his stage, and the side stage was all everyone else that was performing that night was on the side stage. So everyone that was there, they kind of pushed towards that stage because they wanted to see the opener and everyone else.
exactly.
When we got to the arena, the people were scrambling and we're like, "What's going on?" And the hosts or people that were assigning seats and stuff, they said that J. Cole rearranged his whole seating arrangement last minute. So if you have wherever you're sitting might not be where you are sitting, it's probably a different place. And we're like, oh, this is weird. So let's go find our seats where it is.
Right.
So we went from being row 5 to like row 28. And we're like, no, well, this is
No
not happening.
chance.
No chance. Okay, well, you never said no chance. Okay, you were shitting your pants. You're like,
Yeah.
hell no. Like,
Well,
well, okay, I'll tell you what
go
happened
for
though.
it.
So yeah, so we're like, okay, I'm like, Jake, like, remember this? So when we bought tickets, there were 2 seats open front row that
Yeah.
weren't bought last minute.
Yeah.
And quick tip: if you're at a Leafs game, Raptors game, or any kind of concert,
Ticketmaster, baby.
always check Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
Always check the last, last second seats of whatever's blue and whatever's open. If it's open, no one's bought it yet. Go sit there if it's better than where you're
Especially
sitting.
if you're already in that section or on the
Exactly.
floor, then
It's yeah.
you're laughing.
Yeah, so I saw those 2 seats and I looked over to where they were and they were empty and they weren't bought on Ticketmaster. So I was like, oh my God, that's, perfect. So we go stand there and this is like right in front of center
Yeah, when
stage.
Anderson Paak was playing on the
Yeah,
far
so
side.
all their openers were going, all the Dreamville guys that J. Cole brought out, and then Anderson Paak, and we're just watching it from afar, and we're like, we're not leaving these seats. And this is where Jake's like freaking out because like, what if they
Yeah,
kick us
well,
out? What if
the
they kick
reason I
us
was
out?
freaking out is because we'd spent so much money on those tickets.
Yeah,
And I wanted to
yeah.
see J. Cole. So I'm like,
Yeah,
for the
like
love of
yeah,
God.
yeah. So what happens is that all the openers and Anderson Paak performs, and then the lights all turn back on in the Air Canada Center or now Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah,
And so we're like, shit, this is where we should probably go back to our seats.
right.
But I'm like, you know what? I like taking risks. Let's just stay here.
Best decision we've
Um,
ever made.
yeah. So half an hour passes, the lights are still on, and then they just all of a sudden shut off. And this is where like a lot of the seats are getting
Right.
filled. But once the lights shut off, people just didn't know where the seats were. So like they're just like, if you find a seat and pick it and just take it,
Yeah.
whatever. And this is just for the floor seating, not for like the section wise. Um, so that all happened, and the lights are out for about 20 minutes now, and we're just sitting in our seats. Every seat behind us or beside us, they're all filled.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 guys. There's a guy and a girl. They're looking for their seats, and I had a feeling that we're sitting in their seats,
Yeah.
and no one from our section got up because you have to
No.
get up and pull the seat from underneath to see what number it was because it's a floor seating arrangement, and no one got up, and so they're just like, what, you guys have to find somewhere else, and they were so upset. But I was like, you know what, I'm seeing J. Cole now. This is like confirmed that I'm not moving from
We
here.
yeah.
Ecstatic.
When that
Like, and
happened,
then
I think it was a kind of like a perfect situation of like timing. The fact he switched the seats,
yeah,
not even the ushers knew where people were sitting.
yeah,
When
exactly.
those people left, I was like, this is the greatest day of all time. We
Yeah,
just got
and
front row
then
tickets.
and then all of a sudden they started playing one beat, and then they turned it off right away, and so it's just dead silence, and then
Yeah.
spotlight came on, and it was in the crowd, and that's where 2 cops had J. Cole handcuffed in his orange jumpsuit, and they're walking him down the center lane all the way to the center stage, and he walks right past us and goes down to the other corner. They
Insane.
uncut, take his handcuffs off of him, and then he performs his album. And
That
it
was
was
so
just the
good.
best atmosphere that we were a part of, or I've been a part of so far in
Yeah.
terms of a concert. He had like 3 lectures during his show as well.
Yeah.
He explained each song, the story behind each song, especially like Neighbors, how like the cops called on him, the police raided his house. And then also on top of that, the show was supposed to end at 10 o'clock, and it went until midnight.
Yeah, it was
Like it
absolutely
was
mental.
nuts. It was just like the best concert I've ever been to
It was
in
one
my
of the
life,
best.
and it's gonna be hard to beat that atmosphere that we were
Yeah,
part of.
it sure will.
Yeah.
And also
So
just like part of that too is like when you're like I think what we were 20, I want to say maybe yeah,
I
20,
think so. Yeah,
20,
21, maybe
yeah.
no 20. Yeah,
Right. So we're like going
yeah.
there, and that's like the perfect time too. You're a big fan of this guy. Obviously, the COVID
Hmm.
hadn't happened. It was like growing up, like there was just kind of you'll remember
Actually,
that it's like one of the best.
we were. I think it was the summer of 2017. Was it
Right.
17? It was either 16 or 17. So either
16 or
19 or
17.
20. Yeah,
Right. Okay. So that yeah,
yeah,
exactly. That's so like growing up, like those are kind of the best concerts. And
yeah,
but yeah, that's why I think we both. I'm sure you have them on your list too. If you don't, I'd be shocked.
yeah. So what's your favorite J Cole song?
So I love the new album right now. My Life, I have it on repeat. Like
Yeah.
Moray's part in that, I'm obsessed with. But like No Role Models is the classic, and like
Okay. Yeah. Fair
yeah,
enough.
you
This
have
is
to
a
like
banger.
listening to him like play that was. I mean, you can't hate it. But it's almost now I've gotten to the point where it's overplayed in my playlist. But
Okay.
I still love it.
Yeah. Honestly, like I feel like with J. Cole, like Power Trip would be one of my songs that's overplayed, but I'll still always listen to it.
Yep,
Now speaking of J. Cole, he is number two on my list,
of
obviously.
course, classic.
Right. Um, but like, coming back to like what I was saying about Drake, just like his lyrics and everything, he's a great writer.
Yeah,
Like his storytelling in the songs is phenomenal. The
yep.
way he performs in person is great as well. And the beats that he uses or he's provided are all fantastic. For my favorite J. Cole song, I would have to say "Oh Three Adolescents" from the Forest Hill Drives album. That whole song is just great. I think that's his best song that he's ever produced
It's a
and
good
come
one.
out with. But it's a banger. I can say that officially.
So for me, I kind of have a toss up at number two. I think I'm going with the one nobody really knows. And if you're into alternative music, I highly recommend you check these guys out. I'm probably one of like only like 150 fans they have. They're called a band called Magnus Garden, um, and they are like this kind of crazy Norwegian pop group that does alternative kind of like indie rock. And they have a song called "Slow It Down," which is like a mix of guitar and saxophone, and it's just like you can throw it on when you go for a run. You can throw it on just a vibe. Like it's just such an upbeat tempo, unreal group. Their entire album absolutely rips. It's also called "Slow It Down." I highly recommend if you haven't checked them out and you're into alternative music, go do that because they're an absolutely incredible band.
Bro, I'm already bored. Listening to you talk about him.
All right, who you got at one then?
My number one guy, obviously, you know this. It's the weekend.
Yep.
Just I have no words to say, about this guy. He's just great all around. If you don't listen to the weekend, listen to the weekend. If you think Drake is better than the weekend, just stop listening to music. You're embarrassing
Oh,
yourself.
I don't know, man. I think
Like
people would argue a lot differently. I
I
won't.
don't know, man. The weekend is
Man.
just everything about him is just chef's kiss. It's fantastic. Speaking of the weekend, my favorite song definitely has to be this whole album, or like the trilogy for sure. House of Balloons. Everything that he's done on those earlier albums has been all fantastic. But it has, if I was to choose one song, it has to be Wicked Games from House of Balloons. And you know, it's just a mood, really. It's a whole different vibe that you have. Like every time we go on a drive, it's the one. It's like every other song is like a weekend song that I'm playing, and it's just like it sets the tone, sets the mood. Like if you know, you know. That's all I gotta say.
I
That's all I
see.
gotta say.
I like The Weeknd, but I would never. He would never be in like a top five or top 10 to me. So
Yeah, you just don't
but I
have
get
good
it.
taste.
That's not true at all. I think
You have a
every
nobody for number two.
music, yeah, but that's because they're amazing. They're an
They're
incredible band. I've
white people
found
music.
them. They're the best.
Yeah,
So by all means, well, anybody listen to it, check that out. Let me know what you think. Magnus
it's
Garden, Slow It
trash.
Down. It's not.
I'm letting you know.
My number one for sure is John Mayer. I'm a big
Yeah,
John Mayer
I knew
guy.
that.
Alternative music, but like even just for him, it's similar to like what you said about The Weeknd. Like for me, it's just a vibe. Like when you throw on John, it's like it's not even the fact that he's like arguably a top three guitar player of all time. He's learned from the greatest guitar players of all time. It's not just that he's has these insane guitar solos in the song, but more or less you can throw it on and he's a fantastic storyteller. It's all about how he like grew up being this incredible He was famous from a very young age, so he talks a lot about that. And it's just like his life
Mhm.
stories in music, which I love. But
So I listened to I think a couple of his songs and I almost
sure,
fell asleep.
yeah, understandable. Not
And
for
there was
everybody.
I remember this one time where you were like asking me to come to one of his concerts where you were like,
Yeah,
I'll pay for your ticket. And I'm still like, no,
yeah, I
man, I can't
remember.
do it.
Yeah, I sat
I can't
I
do it.
sat fifth row for his
Yeah.
concert,
Who'd
and
you
it's
go with?
Neve.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was a really
Nice.
fun. That was a really fun time, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
was
we.
like, I don't care how much you pay for my ticket, I'm still not going. Like, it's like so like I'm like known to like pass out in random situations in public. If like what I mean by that is like if I'm watching a movie at a theater and the
Yeah,
movie's
don't get in a
trash,
car with Huz, basically.
hey, I drive all of our like wherever we're going, I'm the one driving.
Of
Okay,
course.
don't make me just talk about the U-turn.
Yeah, you don't
Don't
have
don't
to.
make me bring it up.
You
Don't
don't
make me
have to.
bring it up.
That's
Don't
all
make me
right.
bring it up. That's all I gotta say. The U-turn. But yeah, like if we're in a movie theater and the movie's trash, I'm falling asleep in a heartbeat. So if I went to that concert with you, I would have fallen asleep in a
The
heartbeat.
thing is, though, you say that, and yet if you go to a front row concert, I don't care who it is, you're gonna be in a vibe. Like I remember in England, went
Bro,
to a.
the guy is sitting on a chair playing a
He's
guitar.
not sitting on a chair. The background was incredible. The
Oh
music
my
itself
god, that's what you care
incredible.
about? You sound like your
No,
mom right now.
it was an absolutely
you,
incredible
you
concert.
you literally sound like Anne right now. The background was phenomenal.
Well, it was the
Right.
music, the stage setting. The guy is himself is an absolute incredible artist. And honestly, having been to a bunch of concerts in the UK of bands that I couldn't stand or thought I
Yeah.
didn't like, if you
Yeah.
go to a front row concert and you're in the front five rows, I don't care if you think the music is the worst music of all time. You're just
Yeah.
gonna be in that atmosphere and you're gonna go
Fair
nuts.
enough. Yeah.
So hard.
Yeah, because I remember when we went to the J. Cole concert, you weren't the biggest fan of rap. And
Yeah, but I
I
had
think
listened to J.
you
Cole a
yeah,
bunch
you listened to him
prior and it was
before,
really good.
but you weren't like the biggest fan of it. But I guess the being there in that
Yeah, it's
atmosphere made you
incredible.
become a bigger fan. Yeah.
Incredible.
Like I do understand what you're saying. But if I ever get the chance to go to a John Mayer concert, will I go? Probably not. But if I do, maybe I end up being a fan. Who knows?
he's
Time will tell.
he's a phenomenal artist. I think, although I do understand that it's just like any other artist. Music is so subjective that if you like somebody,
Yeah.
you like somebody, and if you don't, you don't, and you can't hold people accountable
Yeah,
for
no, fair enough. But yeah, I guess it's time to move on to our next segment. So it's my favorite segment of the podcast
that. Yeah,
because we started off so strong, but then ever since the first week or the second week, we just had like nothing. So we're like, okay, well, we're counting on you guys. So it's the question segment, right? So we
of
had two
course.
questions this week, right? Jake, you have the first one. I'll let you take over.
So I thought this one was absolutely ridiculous, but we'll
Yeah,
ask it nonetheless. So the
yeah.
question comes from one of my buddies in England, who, if you're listening to this, you're a tool. You know who you are. But essentially, the question is, if you were stranded in a school and you had a line of an unlimited amount of fourth graders coming at you, how many do you think you could take down before you died? Before,
So my take on this is that if you look at the fourth graders in our time,
right.
we were all tiny,
Yeah, that's true. This is true.
right? Now the fourth graders, this like in this generation, they look like they're 20-year-olds,
Seriously, man, it doesn't
right?
make
They're
sense.
all it does not, yeah. It's either that or the complete opposite.
Right.
So like, what kind of fourth graders am I coming across? Like am I seeing giants or am I seeing
Let's
like
say
average?
fourth graders of our era, 10-year-olds that are like,
Yeah. Oh, I'm surviving. If
okay.
I'm 24 and I'm fighting for it, like if I have fourth graders from our era lined up in front of us, I'm surviving.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
how many do you think you could take out? That's the question.
Okay. So let's say that there's 1,000
Yeah.
fourth graders in front of you. Okay.
Yeah.
And are they coming in single file or just rushing you?
I feel like they're probably
Like
gonna.
there's
Yeah, there's a lot of
like
questions.
like yeah.
Let's say they're single file, but it progressively gets quicker.
So it's like zombies, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like am I allowed to have weapons?
I'll give you
It's
a
just
baseball bat.
oh, I'm like maybe surviving 3, 4,
Three. Oh
maybe.
my
A
god.
baseball bat's not gonna do anything.
Oh, just take their head off.
Yeah, okay, you can't take a head off with a baseball bat just like that. And
Just
if there's 1,000 of them running at you, good luck. Maybe you get
that's
one,
true. That's
two,
true.
three. I'm giving myself 3.
Okay. I'd say I'd like to think I could survive more than that, but I feel like if it's life or death, maybe you take out a 10 or something before they get you.
Jake, like No chance.
I think you probably could. I think if
No,
you had a baseball bat and you just started hacking away,
bro.
like they're pretty
4-year-olds running
small.
like there's 1,000 of them.
Yeah, but like I'm saying, if it gets
Like they're all
progressively
running at you.
faster,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, you'd
like
be able to take out a few. I feel like.
yeah. A few is 3.
Yeah, I mean, if you like, I don't know, you could probably get some on the backswing. If you held the bat a certain way, you might be able. But like, what a stupid fucking question.
Man, you're sounding like you've done this shit before, and
Oh yeah,
I don't know how I feel about it.
yeah. So in my free time, I love
You're
to
a
take
serial
bats to
4th grade
schools.
killer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh my god,
Um,
that's all right. What schools do you live close to?
yeah,
Yeah,
fine,
Bill
essentially.
LP, if you're listening, White Oaks, if you're
Yeah,
listening.
thanks so much for that ridiculous question. I'm sure we
Yeah.
got one that's just as stupid coming up here. So what do
Hey,
you got?
honestly, it's not. It's actually a great question.
Oh,
Well,
is
thank
it?
you for submitting
Okay.
it. It's it's a or B, or like you
Okay.
can only pick one. Okay, this or that kind of question. You can either kiss Hasbullah,
Oh yeah, the
okay,
best.
yeah, or bring back Harambe.
Jesus, what kind of a
It's all on your
question is
take.
this?
Great question.
I mean, obviously you're bringing back Harambe because you don't want
Yeah,
to kiss an 18-year-old dwarf. But I mean, Hasbullah is like the cutest kid of all time, except he's not a kid. He's 18. So
yeah.
for me, I mean, you're bringing back Harambe all day long. Not because I love Harambe, but I have no interest in kissing an 18-year-old dwarf. That's essentially how.
I love Harambe. My boy was done wrong. I'm bringing him back. Also, I'm on team Abdul Rozik, not on
That's
Hasbullah.
ridiculous.
No,
Oh my God.
have you listened to his song? It's
Oh
an
yeah, it's a
absolute banger.
banger. It is a
It's an
banger.
absolute banger.
Yeah, credit to
Like
him.
people were like, the girl in that video is who they're fighting for. I was crying at that. That was
People who
hilarious.
don't know who this
But
is, there's these two dwarfs who are going back and forth from Dagestan
if
that
you,
want a
they
box.
everyone knows who they are, buddy. Everyone
Thank
knows who they
God.
are. There's no chance Hasbullah wins that fight if it ever happens.
Guarantee he's gonna win. He's mini Khabib. I
No,
will I will place a bet with
no.
you right now that if that fight happens, Hasbullah kicks the crap out of him. Have you
What's
seen
what are what?
those elbows? Have
Yeah,
you
I've seen
seen
the
them?
elbows. Yeah,
They're incredible.
yeah.
He is
Have you seen
mini
Abdul Rozik?
Khabib. Abdul
Okay. Well,
Rozik. What's he gonna do? Bring a microphone?
Yeah, and then he's gonna beat him with it, just like your baseball bat theory with the 4-year-olds. He's literally a 4-year-old coming at him.
Yeah, he is essentially. That's
Yeah. So
insane.
what are we betting on?
Oh,
Because I'm done.
I would bet
If it
almost.
ever happens,
Yeah, if it ever happens, I'd bet a jersey on it. You want to bet a jersey on it? One of
a
the new
Hasbullah
ones?
jersey.
I mean, any jersey really.
No,
Bet
you already owe me 2 jerseys or 1 jersey.
one jersey. One
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pile on.
Yeah.
Plus, I need space in my closet for more jerseys now. So like, you know,
Nike baby coming out with
hopefully,
hopefully in the NHL. We'll see.
yeah.
But I think that's all we had for today's episode. We'll be back next week with a bunch more questions. And thanks guys for listening today.